Full disclosure, I'm in a terrible mood. Almost didn't do an episode today, but let's just do it. Let's jump in. You probably heard about what has happened here in Texas, in our region of the state. Catastrophic flooding this past weekend that hit summer camps. And my kids had gone to one of those summer camps. They're very well known around here, and it is a lot to process. I decided to do an episode anyway to think out loud about how I'm processing this, and just a couple general things not directly related to this tragedy that just kind of apply to all of us in daily life, and some lessons for how people can not be the most annoying human beings on the face of the planet when there are tragedies. And it's very heavy, I think, for anyone who heard about it, but especially for those of us who are local, because you go on social media and you're seeing the local stories of the funeral notice for this kid and that kid, and can anyone bring this and that to the family? And so it is, as you know, a lot of you have had stuff like this happen in your local areas, it is. Those of us who are local, the tragedy plays out over a much longer period of time, and it's definitely impacting us around here. But I think what gave me the strength to go ahead and do this episode is, of course, my skyrocketing hatred for humanity. Listen, I hate so many new people, and that is my coping mechanism. See, that's what we're going to talk about, is your coping mechanisms in the face of tragedy. And we all have something. And mine has just been stewing in resentment over the annoying things that people who don't even live anywhere around here are saying to me, and the things that I see in comment sections on social media. So that's my coping mechanism. But other people's coping mechanisms are much more annoying, and that's what we're going to talk about. So, faith too. I've also been praying. To recap the situation, in case anyone missed it, the Guadalupe River rose 26 feet. So that's almost as tall as like a 3-story building in 45 minutes at 4:00 in the morning. It was pitch dark. This is a somewhat rural area of Texas. It's to never eat shredded wheat. It's to the west and the south of I don't have mental maps like that. It's to the west and the south of Austin, where we are, Central Texas, like where the camp that is now gone, where my girls went to camp. It was like a 2-hour and 20-minute drive. Hunt, Texas, is the name of the place. And there was also catastrophic flooding where I'm from, one city north of where I am now, in Georgetown, Texas, but that happened later, so there was more preparation, and I don't think there was any loss of life there. But so the summer camps, Caitlin, play the video of, but before you play the video, so I'm giving you guys a little background so you can track with the rants that are coming up. So Camp Mystic is what everyone is hearing about. That's a very high end camp. It's not cheap to go to Camp Mystic, and it's a very nice camp, Christian, and just very nice, in a very beautiful part of the state. It's very hilly, very green, lots of trees. It's just a very beautiful part of the state. Kerrville is kind of the quote unquote big city that is near there. It's not that big, but it's big for that area. But then Hunt, Texas is where there are a bunch of camps right there. So there's Camp Stewart, I think Camp La Junta. I hadn't heard of that one until this tragedy. That's a boys camp. Stewart and La Junta are boys camps. And then Mystic and Heart of the Hills are the 2 girls camps. Heart of the Hills is also very nice, but it's not Mystic level nice. So Caitlin, this is aerial footage. I'm sorry, I don't know. I would give someone credit, but I don't know whose footage this is. It's helicopter footage of, this is Heart of the Hills, where my girls went to camp. So that is what is left of this camp. not much. But most of the buildings destroyed. You see where the campers' cabins would have been. Let's see. And don't forget, we have, if you want to see that footage, there's a direct link to this exact episode on YouTube in the show notes. So you can see that, but you can really see the devastation. One footnote that is probably the only bright spot in this situation is that, when we saw that devastation, that my daughters were like, wait, that's a cabin that's gone. That's a cabin that, like, what's going on. And Heart of the Hills, like Camp Mystic, they're both known as camps where kids tend to stay more than just a week. They're kind of long-term camps. So it never occurred to us that Heart of the Hills wouldn't have a session. It's like some kids stay there for like a month. But we found out there is 1 week in the entire summer that Heart of the Hills did not have campers there. And that was last week when the floods hit. Isn't that insane?
Yeah.
Based on what you see from that aerial footage I just played, if kids had been at Heart of the Hills, this would have been even worse. As horrific as it is, it would have been even worse. But what did happen is there's this woman, Jane Ragsdale, iconic woman. I believe she was in her 60s. She herself had been a camper at Heart of the Hills. And just an incredible, like, just powerful, strong, but fun, a real kind of tough and also motherly figure. I think she bought the camper, was co-owner or something, but she had been the director for decades, since like 1987, this kind of omnipresent part of the camp. And she was killed in the flooding trying to get the staff to safety, because there was some staff at Heart of the Hills, and she was trying to get them to safety. And a story about her that I share just to humanize her and, kind of make this more real for people. Like, I know we have people listening from all over. Jane Ragsdale. Okay, so when my girls went to camp, we're not normal. One of my kids was in a goth phase, which relatable. I was goth, and she was in a goth phase. She was going through it, and at the end of camp, they asked for feedback. What did you think of the camp? And this is there are just a lot of mentally balanced people at Heart of the Hills and at Mystic, just like good, solid, like on the cheerleading team, playing sports, just doing good things with their lives. Like, just, when you think of the all-American kid, like volunteering with the church on the weekends and helping the poor and getting good grades and not neurodivergent and just a solid, good all-American kid. Like, that's the Heart of the Hills, Camp Mystic, Camp Stewart, presumably Camp La Junta. That's these kids in their Protestant Christian background. So my girls go, and at the end of it, they were to write a review to give feedback to the camp. And I guess one of them kind of went off a little bit, called the camp boring, said she didn't like it at all, and just listed all the things she didn't like about it. And I guess it was supposed to be anonymous. I don't know whether she signed her name. That is something she would do. Or I don't know whether they just found out. But so Jane Ragsdale, this very powerful woman who had, been part of this camp for decades, she found my daughter and said, "Hey, I saw what you wrote." And she said, "I just wanted to affirm that it's great that you spoke your mind. We need more young leaders speaking their mind. It's great that you said this. And it's great that you gave us honest feedback. A lot of people, they've been coming here for generations. They feel like they have to say they had an amazing time, and you sure didn't feel that obligation." But she was very sincere. She was like, I am thanking you for being honest and would love to see you again. We will take your feedback into consideration. So that's the kind of woman Jane Ragsdale was. Like, just, when my kid was, having a tough time and didn't quite feel like she was a clique with that particular camp, this woman really affirmed for her that That's okay that you feel that way. That's it, even though, she could have been very defensive. This camp is her whole life. Like Jane Ragsdale's whole life was Heart of the Hills. And, I think most people would have been defensive. Like, man, look at this Fulwiler. What kind of last name is that? I should Google her mother, see if she's sane. A lot of people would have been defensive about that, but Jane was not at all. And I think that helped that daughter at that time experience a more positive turning point, that she wasn't condemned for just expressing her authentic experience. So it's unfathomable that Jane is gone. It's like she was just one of these larger than life people. She had just been this omnipresent fixture, and it's just hard to imagine that she's gone. And then the other camp director at Mystic, I don't remember the gentleman's name, but he was about 70. He was the male equivalent to Jane Ragsdale, a grandfather figure, and he passed away as well, also trying to get people to safety. So, and then of course there's lots of, friends of friends and friends of friends of friends were directly impacted, because it's about, I think I already said, it's like, I don't know, 2 hours, 20 minutes from here. So the main thing that made me decide to go ahead and do an episode today is the insufferable messages that I have been getting on social media. I posted on Instagram stories a little bit about Jane Ragsdale. I showed that aerial footage of Heart of the Hills, and I got some of the most annoying messages in response. Now, I also got some lovely ones. I got some very nice messages, but I also got some very annoying messages, and that is what we are going to talk about today. And I'm also going to hit a very brief intro topic, a follow-up from the last episode, just because I need the mental relief of not staying on this topic the whole time. Welcome to the Jen Fulwiler Show. If you don't know who I am, Google me. Google this podcast too. I don't feel like doing the normal setup. Forget the Patreon. There is a GoFundMe for the Harbor family, Harber, a Catholic family from St. Rita's Parish in Dallas. They experienced a terrible tragedy related to the floods. I'll link to that. And then also Catholic Charities of San Antonio is the Catholic Charities division that is on the ground. They're doing a lot of relief efforts, and I will link to that as well. Okay, let's lighten it up briefly with an intro topic before we get into how annoying people are. So in the last episode, I got a good response from I was talking about how a lot of us cannot have perfectly minimalist homes because our brains don't work that way. And also we don't have the time. That was the big thrust of the last episode, that messing around with your stuff to make sure that you only have the 3 designated items on the perfect table as you walk in the door. That is great. I think it's super cool if you can do that in your home. But for a lot of us, the mental cost of doing that is just, it's too expensive. It's too, like, if you think of your mental energy as a currency, the exchange rate in my brain for doing that kind of work is astronomical, to the point that it's not worth it. And in fact, in anticipation of this follow-up, I looked at one of the little tables right as you walk in the door in my house. And I don't, like, normally I don't see that. Like, it just doesn't exist to me. And it was very interesting. It was like a journey of discovery. I was like, okay, so there's a sock. Let's see, looking closer. Oh, it's dirty. Okay. We have a dirty sock. There's like this, it seems to be like maybe potpourri, but that might be just like old food that has rotted past the point of mold. It's just desiccated now. So there's that. There's like a record player that we never use, and someone put a stick of gum. Luckily it's not chewed gum, could be, but like a stick of gum is like in the record player, and there is some hairspray, but it's empty. And then a brush that I don't know what happened to this brush. I don't know if there was like a massive, like a hippopotamus in the house or something that got after this brush, but it is mangled, and that's on there too. And I'd never noticed really any of this. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I don't have the mental energy to deal with this all the time. Every now and then I do a sweep. I do try to, fix stuff like this, but I don't know. I can't do it regularly. It's just the mental cost is too expensive. And like I was saying in the last episode, I mean, I love the influencers who are like, I just have a minimalist home where we have a few select quality pieces and I mix and match them. In my house with my brain, it is only mix. There's only mix. There's no match ever. And you have to come to a point where you know yourself and you know what kind of mental energy that you have and deal with it accordingly. So here's why I did the follow-up. There is a book that if you have a brain like mine, you've got to get. I mentioned this about once a year. I have no affiliation with the author, although I would love to get a full back tattoo of her riding a unicorn in front of a rainbow, because this book has meant this much to my life. But okay, here's what's funny. It's called Organizing Solutions for People with ADHD. Caitlin, why do I not have a physical copy of the book right now?
Because you can't find it.
I couldn't find it. So it is lost in the chaos of my house. But it's here. We've both seen it. Caitlin has seen it. It's here somewhere. So I actually just now, right before we went on the air, I purchased the Kindle version so that I can show you this. So this woman has consulted with a lot of ADHD clients, artists, absent-minded professor types, and I've recommended this book to a few people. And each one of them has come back and said, this book seriously changed my house and my life. It evidently does not help you keep track of books, but it helps with everything else. Here's just one example from the Kindle book that I just bought. Again, direct link to this YouTube episode. She points out here, this is memorabilia, like kids' artwork, things like that. A lot of influencers who are not used to dealing with spacey artists and neurodivergent types and, the kind of absent-minded professor, mad scientist types, they have all these ideas like, well, there's like a display and you can change out the pictures and all that. I think that is an awesome idea and I love it and I cannot implement it. I tried, the frame would fall open, all of the papers are falling out. I'd never actually exchanged the pictures out of the frame. If you can do it, great. I really think those are great ideas. But she said, look, just get a box, preferably do not have a lid on it. That's a big thing. People with ADHD, these types, and again, even if you're not diagnosed ADHD, if you're just kind of scatterbrained, you need a box without a lid. And she points out, have two boxes. They should be big enough that paper won't get crumpled when it's put in there. And she said neither box should be bigger than a small microwave. And that's the type of thing she points out, that you can't have these big, huge tubs, especially for items that you might have some smaller items in there, because your crazy brain will get overwhelmed. You will not be able to deal with it. She also talks about how, putting things behind cabinets with the cabinet door shut, like in the bathroom, for example, if you have some extra rolls of toilet paper or whatever, that's nice. It's very aesthetic. It's lovely, but you will probably forget it's there. And so she's all about wherever you can, just have things set out. It will make it easier for you to remember what is there, for you to organize it. Obviously, there's some limits for that. I mean, we did have cabinets in your kitchen or whatever. But in general, if there are places where you can just have things open, like open shelves, nothing closed, whatever, then do that. And she recommends, look at this. Here's a basket that fits on the stairs. That's clever. I like this idea. Yeah, a basket that fits on the stairs. And she says have designated staging areas in each area of the house, where if something needs to go to another part of the house, you throw it in that basket. But again, the basket should not be too big, because once you get to a point that too much stuff is in there, you're going to melt down and start screaming. And actually, that's just me projecting. But Organizing Solutions for People with ADHD is the name of the book. And the final thing I will say on that before I get back to ranting is you don't have to be diagnosed with ADHD. And in fact, I would suggest that any mom with young children has honorary ADHD. Even if your brain is not technically wired for that, any mom with a bunch of young children, you temporarily have honorary ADHD, because you do not have the kind of life where you can put two thoughts together and focus on anything for more than 2 seconds. Even if that, maybe your brain isn't wired that way, but your circumstances are wired that way. So you need to be looking up books and strategies and reels and TikToks and whatever for solutions and strategies for people with ADHD. Because while you have all these young kids, your brain is going to function that way. So just accept the term, even if it's temporary. Okay, I'm having an allergic reaction here. This is the cream that... This is not the episode to go into this. This is also why I'm not drinking out of my new drinking apparatus, because it's a little bit hard to drink out of. And I'm telling you, if I were to spill drink on myself, that could actually be it. That could be, we could have actual video of the moment that I turned into an actual Gotham villain. So yeah, this is the cream. I'm sorry, we need a little comic relief because the horrors are just, it's so bad. It's for allergies, because my face will itch while I'm doing the podcast. But I found out after I bought it, and after my husband commented on the box that was very clearly labeled with big letters, that it's for a different part of the body. And my husband was like, what's going on? And I hadn't read the box. And so I was like, yeah, I just need it. Like, the itching is really bad. It took a while. It took a few cycles of conversation to yield the results of me realizing what the box said, and like, oh, it's for my face. It's for my face. Final comment before we transition back into the terrible stuff. One of the reasons that, like, when we have experienced difficult things in our own family, and when my friends have, there's kind of a surprising amount of moments of laughter, even in the midst of the absolute worst horrors. I was talking to a friend about this the other day, that when you are part of the culture of life, when you live in any sort of village, more life means more love, but it also means more loss. You experience more difficult things, more loss. Statistically, if you have, let's say you have one of those big Italian Catholic families where you've got 40 cousins and 6 brothers and sisters, and you got your great aunts and uncles and your mom and your dad and your grandma. I mean, just statistically, you guys are going to go through more, difficult things. And I think it is part of the culture of life. And I was talking about this with a very good friend of mine who was in a truly life or death, absolute, just life or death, very dire, very grave, very serious situation. And we would go back and forth between talking about the situation and, laughing about how I messed up a lipstick application. And we commented that is, it's very culture of life, and it's very Catholic, that it is a normal thing to mix moments of levity with very real, very serious, and very grave sorrow, and very sincere sorrow about difficult situations, because you're part of a culture in which the horrors and the little silly moments in life, they're kind of always mixed together. And it only occurred to me recently that is very much a different culture than the culture that I came from. So if you see me making stupid comments in the midst of things that I'm sincerely deeply grieved about, I do think it's kind of a culture of life thing. So people are horrible. Let's see. So I was talking about Jane Ragsdale, Heart of the Hills being gone. Obviously what has happened at Camp Mystic, and then just other people in the Kerrville area along the Guadalupe. And a bunch of people felt like this was a good time to bring politics into it and bring their conspiracy theories into it. And obviously the comments on social media were like, oh, it's Trump. He cut funding to this and that. Or a bunch of people sent me, so people on the left were like, it's Trump. He cut the funding and then the people on the right said it was cloud seeding. That's, I guess, I don't know. Do liberals do that? I don't know. But everyone found a way to be crazy. It was all covered. It was people on the left and people on the right. Everybody was being crazy. And I mean, like, first of all, guys, just please Google cloud seeding and the effects that are possible for it to have and where this weather system came from. And I mean, also the National Weather Service, they did issue a flood watch for Kerr County 12 hours ahead. And then there was a flash flood warning for Hunt and Ingram 3 hours before the Guadalupe started to rise. So there were warnings and whatever. I'm not going to debate the budget cuts that don't even take effect until October. Here's what I would like to point out. We all know people. There are many, many, many of them. We all know people who immediately turn every tragedy that happens is a reason to beat up on their political bogeyman. It's so in this case, because Trump is currently president, this is Trump's fault. And they do it with other tragedies as well. But again, I'm not just criticizing that group of people. That if Kamala had won, what would people who do the same thing on the right be saying? They would find one transsexual in the whole National Weather Service and they'd be like, it's DEI, right? They would. Yeah. They'd be like, this is DEI. It's because there's a transsexual there. And that's why. It's like, well, we did get warnings like 12 hours ahead of time. But people, so I'm not criticizing, I'm not saying that only people who dislike the current president do that. This is across all religions. It's across all worldviews. And what I am here to make the case for is that it's all funds. It's all effed up, fired up nervous system. Or the more accepted term, the one that I did not make up, is TMS. And it's all fired up nervous system. And here's how we know that it is. Because notice... And I know many, many people that they're in my email inbox and my texts right now. In fact, notice that people who are suffering from fired up nervous system and they're using major world events to keep themselves from feeling their feelings. Notice that it's always the same bad guys who are to blame. And they always comfort themselves that my side that I've been on for years, this side of things, we are the good guys. So there's this bogeyman, there's this phantom that is out there that I have to fight. And it's always that. It's never like we had a relative, wonderful person. I mean, I really, truly one of my favorite people. But so he was a big doomsday prepper and a big conspiracy theorist. I mean, the Illuminati were they're ruining this man's life, and the New World Order and the government and the I forget whatever, like anything InfoWars said, he was like, I think there, yes. And so his take on everything, we were always fighting these shadowy forces that were, supposedly taking over society. And there was never a take that was nuanced, that was like, I think that the government did a pretty good job with that one. And I don't think the government is hiding anything. I think the people in the local and state government who handled this did the best they could. It was just a complicated situation. Never. I mean, anything, whether it's like there are potholes in the road or some major national massive thing happened, it was always supposedly the same demons that they convinced themselves they need to fight. Always the same demons were at play. There's never any nuance. And that's how you can distinguish people who are being tortured by their fired up nervous system versus people who are genuinely trying to help victims and get better results. So someone who says, let's look at what happened here in Texas, for example. In the future, let's see if like a flood warning system could help. Let's see where was this. So the camps were not in a 100-year floodplain. I have not checked if they were in the 500-year floodplain. I don't think they were. But so if someone wants to say, let's redefine floodplains, look at some strategies for preventing this in the future, that's different. I'm not suggesting that no reflection should happen. Obviously, after every single tragedy, people should reflect and consider improvements. And in fact, that's why I'm even saying any of this, because the people who are being tortured by funds and who use major tragedies to just get very noisy about their pet issues, notice how they do the least amount of help. These people who are in my Instagram DMs with the cloud seeding, it was cloud seeding, or it was, this is Trump and this is, whatever, which like one Google search debunks everything people on all sides are saying. They're just not doing anything to help. Even the people who, let's say they think it's government cuts. It's like, oh, well, I heard they don't take effect until October. And also there were a bunch of different AI models, and only one of them even thought that the storms were heading for the Kerrville area, but a bunch of them got it wrong. And like when you try to go into the details of like, okay, what are these specific positions that have been eliminated that you think we should have back that would help this in the future? They never know, because they're screeching. They're just like making noise on social media and in person and texting me as well. Mm-hmm. I might, Caitlin, one of these days you are going to get a text from a number you don't recognize.
It's gonna be the burner.
Yeah. No, I think my current phone will end up being my burner, and that'll be my new real number. I regret so many people having my number. Okay, whatever. So the point is that I want to be clear. I'm not talking about people who say, let's look at what could be different and how we could prevent this, because people like that, they are actually trying to find real solutions rather than trying to validate a previous worldview. So the people who I am thinking of, some of them are acquaintances, some of them are friends. It's like they have always hated the current president. It's kind of their whole personality. And so to have them in my texts, again, when I'm hearing about truly the most horrific story, like mind-bendingly horrific tales of what has happened to some of these families, to have them in my DMs and in my texts. And it's like, look, every time I talk to you, you're at war with this person who you don't even know. And now you're just using this as one more data point in this, in your never-ending obsession with this thing that you hate. And again, I'm only talking about people who dislike Trump because he is the current president. I would be criticizing people who are, obsessed with Kamala or still talking about Obama or whatever if there were a different president. Because again, everyone on all sides does this. And so that is who I'm talking about, is the people who are distracting normal people who want to find real solutions and actually help victims with their screeching and with their conspiracy theories and with all of their talking points that are just validating the worldview that they have been obsessed with and harping on and constantly chattering about for many, many years. Now, how can I help these people? Now put up the statement that I posted on Instagram. And what I love is that everyone agreed with this and was like, wow, it's nice to see someone who's so right. In an alternate universe. Let me pull it up on my iPad here. Okay. All right. I said, because this had to stop. So I needed people to stop messaging me because it was causing me a significant amount of psychological distress. So I said, people who are messaging me with political screeds and conspiracy theories about the Texas floods, if your first response to hearing about the horrific loss of life is to announce to strangers that you have found the reason behind this natural disaster, and it just so happens to validate your previously held social and political opinions, please read the book Mind Your Body by Nicole Sachs. You guys knew that was coming. It will help you understand that you are constantly creating phantom bogeymen that are large and scary, yet out of your immediate control. The endless battles you tell yourself you must fight against these shadowy forces are all simply a coping strategy to keep your mind distracted so you don't feel your feelings. Please take the time that you would have spent sending me more messages and instead begin processing the unresolved trauma that leads you to this behavior. And I meant that very
actual applause here.
Okay. I meant that very sincerely, actually. I did mean that very sincerely. And I do, I mean, really, genuinely, I hope that everyone who does this reads, I do think Nicole's book is probably the best for explaining how and why, let's see, how do I explain? Nicole's book is the best. She lays out the best case for the fact that our psychological makeup, you really don't understand the lengths the body and the mind will go to keep you from feeling feelings that make you uncomfortable. So many people, they just can't sit with sorrow. They can't sit with mystery. They can't sit with unanswered questions. Why did this happen? And they can't sit with, sometimes there's no one to blame. Sometimes natural disasters happen and there probably wasn't a lot that people could have done about, pretty much everyone involved did the best that they could do with the information they had at the time. And that doesn't mean that we can't learn from this and do things differently in the future. But given the information they had at the time, everyone probably did the best they could. And that leaves us to sit with a very gross and terrible and sickening and uncomfortable feeling that just sometimes the world isn't safe. And sometimes really good people and innocent children die. And sometimes entire families are wiped out. And sometimes entire families, except for one person, are wiped out, as happened in multiple cases in Kerrville. And those are terrible feelings. They're terrible feelings. And I think all of us see it in ourselves a little bit. For example, I saw someone from around here who knows people who were impacted, and she was like, man, I got to be honest. I'm angry at God. In fact, I don't know. I don't know if I believe in God in this moment. She's like, this is just, I'm in a bad place. This is bad. Even within myself, I wanted to fix it. I wanted to fix it or find blame and message her like, no. Okay, so the reason this happened is that actually, or no, don't be mad at God because actually there's an answer. And I felt that feeling of wanting to escape my own discomfort with that. And one way we can escape is blame. You point the fingers like, well, they should have, people like, well, they should have evacuated. Well, one of these camps, it might have been Mystic. It was either Mystic or one of the, some other camp. It was also in the Kerrville area. In the 80s, they evacuated. It's unclear to me whether they definitely needed to or it was preemptive. And being on the roads during a flood is terribly dangerous, like it was in Kerrville and in camp in Ingram. The roads ended up being washed away. So for everyone, like, why didn't they evacuate? Because they tried evacuating in 1987, and a bus was swept away in the evacuation. All the kids, everyone was gone. And so, people who are like, just evacuate. It's like, well, on what roads? Like, they're gone. The water is rising really quickly. This is not as easy as it seems. So like blame and finding clear-cut reasons, like, oh, I see. There's this one clear-cut reason, like either a bad man in government or whoever made the decision to do this with the clouds, people controlling the clouds, or like, whatever. Like there's a very clear-cut reason, and now we can all just heap our hatred on the one reason that this happened. And notice how much better that feels. That is actually much more comfortable than just sitting with sorrow and mystery and having there not be an answer. We hate that. We hate not having an answer. We want certainty and we want blame, and that you can feel it in your own soul, that it's much more cathartic to have someone to blame and to have certainty. Like, oh, I know why this happened. Like if it's like someone dies on a roller coaster because maintenance wasn't done. There's a certain catharsis there of, well, I hope they sue the maintenance company. I hope they sue the water park. We're teaching these people lessons. And there's a catharsis in, this is clear. It's a tragedy, but it's clear why it happened. And now I have a place to heap my anger and my resentment. And I don't have to just sit with the sheer sorrow of the loss of this person's life. And so, as I said at the beginning, this is not just about the Texas floods, and it's not even just about tragedies. One of the biggest things I've learned in my years-long process of de-crazying, I've been to so many therapists, I've done meds, you name it, I've done it. And I think the most powerful thing I have learned with everything from like, getting out of chronic pain to dealing with my alcohol issues and all that is the power of being present with uncomfortable feelings. It has only been recently with all this, the Journal Speak Nicole Sachs stuff that I realized how much I, one, ignore uncomfortable feelings, or two, if I realize they're there, I shut them down. And this happened to me even just a few hours ago. I saw something, it actually wasn't related to these tragedies. I saw something on social media, and I've tried to do a practice. I think this is cognitive behavioral therapy. I don't know what the label is for it, but you name your emotions just to kind of acknowledge what you're feeling. And I was like, okay, I feel I feel scared, I feel angry. And what I realized is this emotion was actually so negative and so uncomfortable and so strong. I didn't even want to name it. I didn't even want to use words. And immediately I wanted to start scrolling social media, just pull up Instagram, pull up YouTube, pull up TikTok, just anything, or just, go, I don't know, call my husband and complain about something, or go buy something on the internet, like go buy, see what Sephora has got today. And I was like, I'll give this 20 seconds. to just be present with this feeling. But honestly, I can't do it much more than that. I really don't like this. And again, this was not even about something truly horrific. It was kind of just something that hit me the wrong way, that I didn't like, that I saw. And honestly, I don't think I could have sat with it for more than like 20 seconds. Did I say minutes? I meant seconds.
No, you said seconds.
Seconds, okay, yeah. I don't think I could have sat with it for more than 20 seconds. But this is probably the greatest like practical life skill I've ever learned, because it comes into parenting as well. And I've mentioned this before, that especially as your kids get older, after their age 8, 9, 10, there are going to be moments when either something has happened to them with their friends or at school, or they're telling you maybe that you did something that hurt them. And as a parent, there's hardly a worse feeling than your child being in pain, than your child having negative feelings. And so we want to do the same mechanism that I've been talking about in relation to the tragedies. It's like we want to fix, we want to stop this feeling and immediately jump in like, well, why are you hanging out with those friends? You shouldn't hang out with that group of friends if they treat you that way. Or, like, I didn't say that. You're telling me I hurt your feelings. I never said that. I didn't say it that way. All of this is us just wanting to run away from the feeling of this kid is really sad and really hurt. And it's almost like a superpower if you can train yourself to just sit there in the discomfort and just name it if it helps. Like, wow, I feel okay. This kid telling me that I did something that hurt them, it makes me feel like the worst person in the world. It makes me feel confused. It makes me feel guilty, blah, blah, blah. But if you can get to the other side of that, that is not only where real personal healing can appear, and that is not only where you can like invite God in, just let God heal you, let the Holy Spirit in. It's like you have to open up the locked doors that are within you in order to like let God in and let God heal you. But you have to kind of open up those doors that you normally keep locked to those emotions that normally make you very uncomfortable. And when you do that, that is when you can actually be of assistance and you can actually help people. So rather than DMing Jen Fulwiler political screeds from, like Trump conspiracy xyz.info.ru, you could just sit with the really, really bad and uncomfortable feelings that this brings up in you. Wait until they pass and you feel that you have some healing. And that will leave you with a certain emotional clarity. And in that emotionally clear space, then you can pray, you can discern, you can say, okay, this is a terrible situation and I want to help. How can I help? And you can see how you're inspired. Maybe you're inspired to get on a plane and fly down here and, help be part of the recovery effort, be part of the cleanup effort. Maybe you're inspired to donate an extra amount of money to one of these GoFundMes. Maybe you're inspired to just pray and help in your local community. But, imagine if all of these people screeching on social media, not just in this tragedy, but in others. Again, if next time we have a president who's more left-leaning, everything that goes wrong will be like, well, that was DEI. That's the reason for all of this. Different sides do it depending on who is in power. Imagine if all of these people could just sit with their uncomfortable feelings and not run away from them in absolute terror and just try to find blame and finger pointing, and just let those really difficult feelings pass through. And then with calmness and clarity and an open mind and no fictional phantom demons that they make up, to shadow box all the time to distract themselves. Imagine if they could say, there are bad things in the world. There are that need to be fixed. But I would like to just be open to wherever I'm led to be part of the solution. And And it's not about proving one side wrong and proving that I'm on the side of the right. It's really about, God, lead me to who needs help the most right now and how I can best serve them. Imagine how much more assistance those people could be to others. And again, in our own families, when we're not shutting down our kids because we just can't sit with the discomfort, when we do sit with it and we let those uncomfortable moments be there, and then we take a deep breath and say, okay, now with clarity and with calmness and with a truly open mind, maybe I'm wrong, maybe you're wrong, but we're willing to see nuance. We're willing to, see different angles of this. How can we move forward? That is when you can truly be of service. Because again, what so often, one of the ways that funds, fired up nervous system, manifests itself is people create monsters to fight. It's epidemic. And again, you see it in the Catholic world with, left-leaning Catholics, with the hardcore Latin mass Catholics, with politics, people on the right, people on the left. Vegans do it. It's like all my, friends in Austin of all these, different political types. So you see it a lot there. It happens everywhere. But it's like I said in the Instagram statement, they will create a monster to fight, and it's always something big and scary, and you don't fully know what it's up to, but it's very bad, and it's purely bad. That's another hallmark that it's funds. It's like this side over here, they are purely bad. They only want bad things for the world, and I am on the side of goodness. Oh, thank goodness. Thank God. My side is the good guys, and they are the bad guys. And every single day in these people's lives is a scavenger hunt to prove that this big scary monster that they have created is the bad guy and needs to be fought, needs a lot of their mental energy, and that they are on the side of good. And to be clear, it's not to say that there are no legitimate problems with the sides that they dislike. Of course, name any president, name any politician, a lot of problems that need to be solved. But I'm talking about the people who have an obsessive need to create a very specific kind of, fictional monster to shadow box. And they simply cannot see nuance. And they simply are not open to other possibilities, to seeing different sides of things that, well, okay, maybe the side you don't like, they actually did a couple things pretty well there. And maybe your side really screwed up a few things. No, they need to constantly be at war with a very specific demon, because that keeps their mind occupied. They can't feel their feelings if they're busy out at war with these bogeymen that they have created. So we all do it to some extent, because we want something to blame, someone to, some way to fix it so that we don't have to feel our feelings. But I truly believe that when we can just sit and be present and not grasp at blame and not grasp at trying to find clarity where there really is none, one specific thing caused this. When we can just sit in the mystery, which in this case I say in a very negative sense, like just the hows and the whys and the not understanding, when we can just sit in that discomfort, that is when we can truly begin to love, and when we can truly begin to be of service. So this is a long way of saying, get out of my inbox with your conspiracy theories and your political blame. And I think I'm going to wrap it up here, because it's a heavy subject, and at the time of this recording, there is still a lot playing out. I don't know if you guys have read some of the stories, but they are they're just very bad. They're very bad. So it's pretty heavy over here right now. And yeah, I think the takeaway is get out of my inbox. Stop sending me annoying things. And I think all of us can just bring more light and love, and most importantly, real solutions and real positive, constructive ways to move forward to prevent more tragedies in the future when we start by just learning to feel our feelings. That is it for this episode. This was a tough one to get through. I might not even publish it. I don't know. I might have Caitlin hit delete on this whole thing. There might be no episode for this week, but please pray for everyone involved in this tragedy. It's really bad, and we will be back with you next week here on the Jen Fulwiler Show.